Visiting the Celtics, no LeBron James, no Anthony Davis. They're sitting on the bench in this one. Celtics are 15.5-point favorites. What could go wrong? Austin Reeves is the answer. Here's a three in the second quarter. Put the Lakers up by 8. Under 3 minutes to go in the second. Lakers up by 5. Here's Reeves again. Guys, this is just going to pretty much be Austin Reeves highlights. So what'd you think of how Austin Reeves played last night?
He was in fuego. He was red hot, and they couldn't guard him, which didn't make sense. But that's unguardable right there. But that's what happens when you get hot.
Yeah, now early in the fourth quarter, Lakers up by 10. Here comes Reeves. He's going to drive and bank in the floater, Monica. He had it going.
I mean, this was his night indeed. He was just in the zone, as they say.
Lakers up by 9 here. This is Russell. Reeves decided to pass it off this time. LeBron and AD hype. Lakers win it, 114-105. Russell had 16 points and 14 assists. And you look, the Lakers win, but they're still 9th place in the West, which would put them in the play-in tournament if the season were to end today, which, thankfully for them, it does not. They're 4 games back of the Suns, which would give them safety from the playoff game. 4 games back from the Sun, they would be
a lot further away from the Sun.
BPI only gives them a 6% chance to finish at 6th place or better. So that's where things stand with the Lakers after their biggest win of the year. Right? I mean, there's no question going into Boston and winning without their top 2 guys. So what did that game tell us about the Lakers?
Nothing.
All right.
Serious? No.
First take is next.
It doesn't, because their 2 best players didn't play, and the problem has been when their 2 best players have been playing, which is the first time this season that AD and LeBron were not in the game. At least one of them wasn't on the floor, which is a good sign. Normally in the past, we've been concerned about Anthony Davis's availability. We're not this year. And by the way, turtleneck coming back looks great on him.
Oh my gosh.
This is more about the cast that's around LeBron and AD that helped get them to a Western Conference Finals last year and really had all of us caught up in this kind of cool young group of energetic players and defenders, and Austin Reeves, of course, and what they can do with LeBron. But since the in-season tournament, Monica, they have fallen off big time. And now we got LeBron putting out hourglass emojis, and we're all trying to decipher what this means. So this is this supporting cast saying, it ain't us. Not us. We can ball.
Listen, first of all, after the thriller versus the Warriors, I don't know how we didn't forecast at least 3 games out for the 2 of them, just in terms of the energy that game required. So I wasn't surprised when I heard that they weren't playing this particular ball game. I think, to me, for the Celtics, this is an indication of the dog days of the season. Everybody is trying to make that push to get to All-Star break, to recharge mentally and physically. And so I'm not going to put too much on it. They shot 33% from 3, 16 and 48. Like, we know the three-point line is their biggest threat. But as far as the Lakers are concerned, I want to take confidence away from this, because you're not getting this level of productivity consistently from your role guys. But that is not a realistic measure of this team, because that's not this team.
Because you didn't have LeBron and AD as the dominant pieces, so you had other players who could be a little more reliable. It always happens like that, right? Like where the one game, the one game is like, FGAs, it's time for me. And so players who aren't as comfortable in supporting cast roles, now you become more of a primary player. But again, last year this all made sense. This all fit last year. Why all of a sudden this isn't fitting is the big question.
On last year, though, too, there was such a smaller window for it to fit. Remember, it started to click late.
Because it was post-trade deadline, right? They made a bunch of moves at the trade deadline, which actually brings me to what I wanted to ask next, which is trade deadline is what, 6 days away now?
Thursday.
So what are we looking at for what are the move or the moves that the Lakers need to make?
Well, what the fan base wants them to make, what LeBron probably wants them to make, is DeJounte Murray from Atlanta, who they could bring in as a defender and help them out in the backcourt with defense. But I don't know if that puts them over the top. I don't know if that makes them a championship contender. And what do they have to offer? Because Austin Reeves is a player, do not trade him.
Right.
And that's what Atlanta would want. So what do the Lakers have to offer in a trade?
What would you do?
What would I do?
Yeah.
I would start fielding offers for LeBron James. Because that's the best thing you have. It's the most valuable piece, tradable commodity that you have. And of course it's not going to happen, Twitter, so don't bother responding to me. I already know it ain't happening, all right? X, Twitter, Instagram, Snapface, whatever it is. Just trust me, I get it. But if we're looking at it logically, the Lakers don't have assets. They don't have enough to build a championship team. For a 39-year-old superstar who's still giving you 25, 7, and 7, shooting 50%. He still can play at a superstar level. But it's not going to be enough, whatever you do, to get another championship. So now you got to start thinking about the future. We tried to do this last year. It was too soon. And they put together a nice team and they made a run. But it wasn't enough. But, Mon, what else are you going to do if you're the Lakers? Give up the 2028 pick so that when he's long gone and now you're stuck with, I don't have any draft picks. I'm in the lottery, but I don't have my pick because we went through this era and didn't come away with a championship. You can get a boatload for him. It's never going to happen, but logically, it's the right move.
Yeah, it does make sense on paper. And it may even make sense if you were to dig into, like you mentioned, what do they have in terms of the available picks and so on and so forth. But the Lakers as an organization, LeBron James is the face of that franchise right now. Yep. And I'm sure they don't want to regress back to prior to LeBron getting there, right? They've always had a marquee Hall of Fame caliber guy that carries.
They still have
So this is where I was about to go next. Okay. I'm old enough to remember when AD was supposed to be the guy to carry the torch. And it seems that conversation has dwindled more and more and more. And here we are. I mean, do you trade for AD? Anybody trying to trade for AD?
No, not with that contract. And also the question about availability. And to his credit, he has. And I've been critical of Anthony Davis's availability. This year, he has been. He came into the season, he did all he was supposed to do. Be in great shape and be available to your team. He has been. He's played at a high level. But these two guys together, it's still not enough to compete for a championship. And when you have LeBron James, that's all you should be trying to do while you still have him and while he's still playing at a high level.
Well, you're saying, and we'll get back to this in a little bit, you're saying that if they move him, you're saying they got to press the reset button and start 100%. All over again.
You can get, I mean, they're talking about 4, 5 picks, 6 picks. For some teams, it's worth it for that shot at a title.
What'd you make of everything that went down there, the atmosphere in the Garden?
Atmosphere in the Garden, Monica. So, you know, the Apple Watches, they give you the loud environment warning. I got 4 of them during the game. Okay, and that means it's hazardous, noise. But it's something that we haven't seen in that building in a long, long time. And he is in the middle of it. We hear so much about everybody talking about it, and we've done it too. The Knicks got to find a star. The Knicks have got to trade for a star. Forget stars. Get supernovas. All the Villanova guys. Bring them all in. That Jay Wright culture cat, there's something about them. And Jalen Brunson is the centerpiece of this. He has transformed this franchise.
Prior to the game, Rick Carlisle was asked, did he predict this version of Jalen Brunson? And without missing a beat, remember, he was in Dallas with Jalen as well as his head coach. Without missing a beat, unequivocally, Carlisle was like, he said the guy has the stuff. He says he hears all the noise and he just manages to chew it up, munch it up, spit it out, and use it as fuel. Jalen wins. And I think in a league where most of these guys have been the top of their class the entire span of their basketball lives, to be a guy that is very comfortable being doubted, being overlooked, and still managing to figure out a way and to do it so well, I put my money on JB.
So how far can this Knicks team take this?
Well, okay, so if you look at it, his on-off is similar to Joel Embiid in terms of when he's on the floor and when he's not, and the productivity of this team. And Joel Embiid is in the MVP conversation. While they've lost to Boston and they've lost to Milwaukee, they have not met this version of that team. Those losses were in the calendar year that just passed 2023. And so I would be very curious to see how that defense matches up. The Knicks currently defend better than Milwaukee. I think they've beaten Philadelphia this calendar year. So, listen, I don't see why this team can't push for Eastern Conference place in the Eastern Conference Championship.
Yeah, and we got to also put the caveat when healthy.
When healthy,
Julius
very
Randle,
true.
who was also named to the All-Star team, he is not healthy with the shoulder right now. They don't have their starting center, Mitchell Robinson, and they lost OG Anunoby, who they traded for. So they get these guys back, or at least you get Anunoby back first, and they have the makings of a team that can definitely make a run like we saw Miami Heat did last year with Jimmy Butler as a centerpiece, and all these guys that just understand their roles, know them, and a team that plays hard. And what you don't want to be is a team that plays them, especially if you're like one of these cake eater, I'm like good all year type teams, then you play them in the first round. Like, this is a team that is going to come after you, and they're going to, I know Legg said this, Tim Legler said this recently on ESPN, and I thought it was the best thing to say. Every night they're going to outwork you. They might not out-talent you, but they're going to outwork you, and they're never going to let go. A game like last night was a perfect example. They had 4 missing key pieces to their rotation.
Every reason to pack it up.
Every reason. It's the middle of the season. It's the dog days of the NBA season. You're already won 8 in a row. This is the time to go, all right, it's not our night. But they just wouldn't lay down.
Sure wouldn't.
And they pulled out yet another win.
Pretty exciting, fun story brewing up the road here in New York at Madison Square Garden with the Knicks. And he wasn't just having a good season prior to this injury. He was outperforming his 2022-2023 season in which he won MVP. One problem, though, there's a new rule this year. He has to play at least 65 games to qualify for that award, thanks to that new rule in the NBA's new CBA. Played 66 games last season, so The question now becomes, is that 65-game minimum, that new rule that says in order to be eligible for the postseason awards, you have to play at least 65 of your team's 82 games. Is that going to cost Joel Embiid a second straight MVP award?
No, that won't, because it's the knee that's going to cost him. I mean, the numbers are great this year. There's no question about it. But he's also playing, and then he takes a couple of games off, then he plays. That is the issue, the knee, and the concern for the knee. And well before the meniscus injury and that scary fall we're showing you right here, which Kuminga lands right on it, you can see he's in obvious pain. If you were watching this game, and I was, and I'm sure, Monica, you were too, he was already dragging that leg up and down the floor. Like, he already was showing you that knee was bothering him. We have seen him enough during this season where that knee is now starting to get worse and worse and worse. Now this injury comes up. I don't think the rule is going to come into play because I think the knee is going to be the bigger issue.
It is unfortunate that injuries are a part of the game. And yes, the conversation will be the 65 minimum, but you're right, the knee is the primary thing. I just think there's two things that are missing to me in the conversation about the minimum. One, everybody is acting like it was just the players, and as if the entire league and medical staffs and front offices and coaches were not also complicit in how we got here to requiring a minimum. The second part of it to me is I understand the guys feeling like they are being penalized if they're injured, but at the same time, if a guy manages to stay healthy, they should have the same opportunity and maybe even be given more credit in terms of hitting some of the accolades that trigger monetary benefits in their contracts. And so this is unfortunate. I personally, if I'm the Sixers, I don't care about 65. I don't care about the MVP. At this point, you need him to be as healthy as possible in the postseason because this window is fleeting.
And that gets to the heart of why they feel like they needed the rule, right? Because the point of the rule is to disincentivize sitting guys, right? And sitting guys out for regular season games. But we have a situation now where he obviously is injured and can't play. So it leads to questions about whether the rule is fair. Is it fair?
Of course it's fair. Well, first of all,
life ain't fair. But anyway, go ahead.
There you go. No, and I'm with you. Like that's where I was going. It's the whole idea that that's the reason we have rules, right?
Right.
And Monica, what you said is, I'm glad you said it because it's not being talked about enough. We blame the players for this rule. Well, if you didn't sit out so much, if we didn't have people like Kyrie and others who just sat out because they wanted to sit out, not because they were actually hurt. If we had guys that were talking more about how playing 82 games, that's really hard, it's too much on my body, whatever it is, we made it a science to not play a sport. Like I can't imagine NFL players telling them, you know what, it's better off if you don't play this weekend. Hell no, you got to play, you want to play. And most players in the NBA want to play every game. But this didn't start with just players. This started with Greg Popovich wanting to make a point about the schedule and back-to-backs. And wait a minute, I played on a Wednesday. Now Thursday I'm playing on TNT. No, I'm sitting Ginobili and Duncan and all those guys out of spite. Starts there, and we call it rest. We made it a science, and now it became an excuse. And then other players took it. So what you said is it's absolutely correct. It's why we got here, but now we have to make rules just to inspire players to want to play. Look at the in-season tournament. Stephen A. said this, he was right. You put $500,000 on the table, how hard did these guys play?
So I think that the hope was obviously that it would make the rule would take care of this problem, but obviously it hasn't. I assume the NBA will continue to address it as we move along.